How are we looking at doing this? Is it going to be basically you and Wendy just going through it? If we have questions of anybody, they chime in. How do we want to do it?
What I would like to do, Mr. Chairman, if we could, is Wendy will do an overview of the department, the things that finance controls, and then the department directors will present those variances. And then if you guys have any questions, then we'll just move through it that way if you're okay with that.
I heard most of it. You said that Wendy will do the review, and you said something about department. I didn't hear what it was.
Yes, Wendy can do the review of the things that finance puts in, personnel, salary, stuff like that, or insurance, and then each director will present their variances and available for questions.
Okay, so each one will be participating. Okay.
Yes, sir.
David, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Are you talking? You're not. You're on mute.
Claudia, I'm sorry if I wasn't able to hear you copied anything I said.
No, I was not able to hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, you just started speaking, Dave. That's the first thing we've heard you say right there.
All right, sorry about that then.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, real quick.
Yep.
We were just talking behind the scenes, and we're going to go ahead and do it. That they'll be available for questions. Wendy will present the variances, and you guys can ask questions from the directors. That'll make it a lot more streamlined.
All right, so let me call to order try it all over again. This is call to order the Finance Committee Budget Review Workshop for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Claudia, would you call roll, please?
Chairman Reinhardt.
Here.
Vice Chair Gonzalez. Vice Chair Gonzalez.
Yeah, it looks like he's not connected again. He's got a red telephone with a slash through it on his picture. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Member Gardner.
Here.
Member Darnell.
Here.
Member Brown.
Here.
All right, thank you so much. As we move through this meeting, we're gonna, just like before, they're gonna go through, Wendy's gonna go through if she can only highlight that it's gonna be increased budget. You can follow along. If you have any questions, just chime in. And, from there, hopefully it'll run smoothly and quickly. If you have questions, the director will be available to us. All right.
year 2021 proposed. And just have it on the screen so everybody can see me that understand the table of contents at this point. Okay. So I'm going to scroll down and want to do a quick overview just where we stand with the city and what we've done in the methodology. 6 items that played a role in how to design this budget. As you're seeing the elected and appointed officials, as I scroll down, you can follow along in your book, and we're in the first section and getting ready to approach the budget message. I'm not going to go line by line, obviously, for the budget message, but one is some of the key highlights to consider as to what happened this year. Projected revenues from the state, as mentioned earlier, were projected at 671 in shared revenue losses. With that being said, we took an approach based on, obviously guidance and direction from the executive management to make a financial sustainability plan in which we to take into consideration and a lot of other revenue being lost. And revenue would impact us that I could and then any other things that I could come up so I can present the best. That's the objective, is that we're going to come back and don't see we've done through the budget has been, during the March, we have financial impact. We were able to pay every single employee for all services rendered, essential or non-essential as well, with no further impact, and then got back into regular routine up in June 2020. This year we have absorbed another 6% of medical without impacting the employee. So we are taking on about $539,000 in additional expenses in medical, with not $1 being taken away from the city employee. With that being said, in consideration with the local government, our cousins here at the county, and just local trends, we will not be at this point offering any salary increase, like COLA increase at this time, what you've seen before, 2 or 3%, in order to be in a place of transition and absorption during this time, to make sure that we can maintain ourselves conservatively to run the city as best as we can. And that's just a funding strategy at this point that we think is the right one to do.
Wendy,
Yes, sir?
question for you. It seems like we are absorbing 6% almost every year. Is there a reason that, is this just a standard thing that our insurance rates, have we looked around to find out if we can do better? I mean, because it's kind of every year, like 3%, 6%, what they're continually raising their rates. So are we shopping for this, or just sticking with what we have and let it be?
Yes, sir. We talked, and I had meetings with our benefits coordinator and got PRIA reports for that. And so we are looking now. We have to stay in the self-funded, because obviously a fully funded would increase our cost by another $1.5 million. What's happening is our demographics are getting older. The rates we were able to lock in, which is a positive, which was my next comment, was we were able to lock them in for the next 3 years in dental, life insurance, disability. However, because of COVID, we are waiting on claims for June because they're expected to increase around the nation. Believe it or not, the increase to medicals was an average of 7.5% to almost 11%. So we were actually pretty good but we are monitoring with them the best pricing that we could. The reason for the absorption, sir, is also maintaining a workforce. You know, we have to offer something, you know, and if we can't offer a pay increase and levelize their pay at a certain point, we want to give them an incentive that we're covering this. Eventually, possibly next year, sir, depending on how this goes, we will have to possibly give some of that cost to the employee, but our due diligence is to do the best for our employees as we can and try to absorb it. But our demographics is getting older. We are shopping, to answer your question right now. With the transition of a human resource director, we didn't think it was appropriate to make those decisions without that input as well. But we are looking, and we're pending to look at these claims in June to see where we really, you know, lie. But like I said, as a strategic morale kind of decision, that is why we went with covering that for the employee. It is a large burn, and we are trying, like I said, to market the best we can. So I'm expecting to get some reviews as far as costs for next year to see if we're sitting in the right place again. But these were, I firmly believe, the best rates we could get. We were able to get more for the employee with minimal increase, even though it feels like last year we did the same thing. But we are, like I said, shopping around for it and taking all those parameters in consideration.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. That's more not my question, is just, like you said, last year, if we're locked in, it seems like, are we locking in another 6%, another 4%? I think it's the right thing to do, but I'm just trying to see, are we doing anything to minimize it? I know we had a lot of clinics in Kissimmee when I worked in Kissimmee, so we did a lot of stuff ourselves, so it reduced the price, and assume we could do something similar here. But that's all I really wanted to figure out, is why are we every year we're having to absorb? I want to continue to absorb, but it'd be nice to go, hey, we're locked in, we're good, and it's no increase to our employees, and then we're able to also imply maybe 2% increase in a COLA, something to that effect.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Several in place. We were initiating a more intense wellness program. Matter of fact, the documents went out today. We partnered with some people to help us raise our fitness level. The second thing I would request the Finance Committee, if you could make that a recommendation, that we should form a task force to look into driving those costs down, expanding our clinic capabilities, and model that after, such as the Rosen plan or something like that. That would be very helpful to me moving forward.
I
agree.
Yep, that sounds like something we could do.
So moving along with that, for the fiscal year 2021, we're going to be maintaining at 5.1128 mils. Obviously, budget methodology, you all are aware, on a net zero. We do right now approximately have 9.1% general fund contingency reserve. And then the total budget of St. Cloud this year is projected to be $179,113,250. Overall, with contingencies prior year fund balance, that is a 10% raise across all lines, with a reduction in prior year fund balance of 39%. You've never seen it in St. Cloud before, and we're very proud to do that, you know, with this team who has just scraped and looked at everything possible to continue running the city at an optimal speed. So I just think that that should be noted there, and you'll see it in the deliverables moving forward. Of course, you're all aware of your business and governmental fund structure for the general fund being in general services, all the special rev funds, the gas tax, utility 1%, et cetera, agency funds being the economic and CRA, and then your utility and internal service fund and component units such as Stevens Plantation District, and those are there for reference for you. We wrote a lot of items on, you know, obviously current opportunities that you can read in case you may have any trouble sleeping tonight, and I just wanted to focus quickly on current challenges that we're facing, just as any municipality across the nation is obviously the unemployment continues to rise. You know, we've written there a little bit about consumer confidence has been shaken. You know, a lot of people talk about a small recession. but we continue to filter and fill the needs of the city, public infrastructure. We're still supporting development. We have just an optimistic view of how we're gonna ride this storm and make it an opportunity. I'll give you the highlights for the budget just overall. This year, there were, proposed budget is including 5 new positions in the general fund. 3 of those are crossing guards in the police department for the added increase of the school coverage that's needed. A wireless engineer and software integration specialist, both to join the IT team in order to staff that department for the needs through information technology for infrastructure. 2 new positions in the building fund are 2 senior trade workers. Those would be staffed mid-year. And then those positions, of course, have been staffed or are proposed due to the continued level of service for those residents and the impact that they're having in the building fund. Again, you see the medical and dental costs that increased by 6% with rates, like I mentioned before, in dental and life secured for 3 years, which all that means in layman's terms is we know what it's going to cost ahead of time for 3 years straight, so budgeting is going to be much more streamlined because we are not dealing with so many variable costs other than those discussed through the medical side. We, of course, again, are absorbing that cost for employees, and that locality increase for the employees at this time has not been placed in budget. The fire and police union contracts, in the public safety budget, we had to increase by 5%. You'll see across the board, pension costs go up because of the fact that our contribution amounts were at a certain level, and after cumulative reports come out, we adjust them, and we are going in the general fund from a 14% contribution to a 14.87, not much impact there. Public safety, we were at 25.29 and will be adjusting up, and this budget is adjusted to reflect that at 32.235. So big increase there on that. There was a lot of fuel cost increases as well, 12%. Some of it due to the rising cost of fuel, also the usage of fuel through increased routes and the fleet that keeps increasing, and that activity for curbside pickups, trash, recycling. Debt service was decreased by 3.2%, less interest being paid, of course, through the outstanding debt. If you remember the improvement revenue bonds we did in 2010 A series has quite helped. And overall, again, millage at 5.1%. At this year, it's been changed. Obviously, we've kept it for 5 years. We are standing at a 97% budgeted collection rate. Ad valorem tax revenues were budgeted at $3.69 million, with a positive increase of almost $2 million at $1.9 million. That's over 17% over the 2019-2020 tax year. Obviously, due to a lot of constructions and improvements, and of course, the increase in value for the existing properties.
Hey, Wendy,
Yeah.
question for you.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm going back up. You were talking about this increase in fuel. I don't know where you're getting your gas from, but it's the lowest it's ever been. So how are we having a 12% increase in the rise of cost of fuel when it's the lowest it's been historically in probably 20 years?
Well, sir, I got to base it on the outstanding projections from fleet out there and the staff. They've calculated an increase. What I have is almost 17 cents per gallon from both gasoline and diesel fuel. So I haven't really gone out there, like I said, to check, the average price, but based on the calculations that I have to trust from departments, like I said, the average increase was slotted at 17 cents per gallon, and I believe 9% in diesel.
Yeah, because I know in the past we were getting a set fuel, and this is a few budgets back, but it was like $3.15 a gallon. If we are paying that type of money, then we are doing something wrong, because then everyone needs to shoot over to Walmart because it's a whole lot cheaper.
Well, if you'd like, sir. I'll make notes as I'm taking notes anyway for the committee as well, and I will list if you'd like to list recommendations to review fuel costs. Like I said, I have gallon increases of like 2,047 gallons this year, and some of the stated reasons was added routes and what we're covering. So I can definitely go back and quantify that a little bit more for you, just to double check if that's the committee's pleasure.
Yeah, if we're just talking about an increase because we are doing more routes and stuff like that, but I'm reading this as the rising cost of fuel. I don't know where you're getting the rising cost of fuel, but unless you guys or anyone other members are seeing something and I'm not, I mean, it did touch $2 here at the Walmart, but I think it's down to like $1.92 again. So I'm curious what we are paying for fuel. We shouldn't, and I'm okay with, we added 100 more routes, so we're increasing that way. But if we're saying the fuel cost is going up dramatically, I'm just curious where that's coming from. So that's all I was asking.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I think that's a great question. One of the things I do know is we're putting on more routes for sanitation, additional police officers. And so some of that, and we'll go back and look at it a little bit more in depth, but some of that is because, like you said, additional routes and additional equipment we're putting on the road. So we have to figure out what that break point is. I agree it's cheap right now, but if we were buying more, the cost could go up.
No, that I get that. I was just going with the rising costs. I'm thinking.
No, I got you. I see how you can read that either way.
Yep, but yeah, if it's more routes, more people, I get that completely. So that was all I was asking. Thank you, though.
Wendy, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The collection rate of 97%, do you feel that's realistic?
Wonderful question, and I actually, what a difference a year makes, and I can answer that fully. I did a stress test on our current collections, and we are actually performing at 104% collection rate. 97 is actually our conservative number, so I feel strongly we're going to hit it. Ad valorem isn't really being affected, because of the taxation values are set up prior to, not as in relation to tourism and things of that nature. So those are locked in. I'm very confident. I actually feel that we're going to exceed that. Like right now, just an example, we're at 75% of budget and we're at 99% collection, sir.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Going down to just a quick fund balance, there is obviously a report down there towards the end of the budget about fund balance. The city just year over year is always exceeding and keeping good thresholds. We're establishing much better methodologies as to what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. The fund balance policy is 12.5% of reserves, which 2 months of reserves based on our expenditures is at a high at about $6.3 million, and that's at a high. We exceed fund balance policy, that 12.5% by 11.2, which obviously that equates to 22%, or that $10.1 million of general fund reserves. We're trying to be a little bit more methodical in this, is that instead of, we don't always want huge balances of fund balance. We want to allocate this out to maybe some type of savings method, maybe 10% of it going to a form of savings for emergencies or a strategy for future projects, so that we're continuously now being proactive versus reactive to anything that happens. Highlights of the budget, like I mentioned before, at $179 million. This is the spread that you see on your screen of the budget. 7% increase coming through from the general fund, 15 and 19 from water and water impact, which are really one whole fund, but we separate them for tracking purposes, and 14% for the sewer fund. And as you can see down the road, building permit funds, 58%. This is not something that is displaying as incorrect or we're going out of our norm. But as we spoke earlier, through the financial review for the quarter, the building permit has reserves that they need to draw down in order to stay compliant with the House bill, and this is the reflection of that, making sure that they're spending at an accurate tempo in order to maintain the House bill requirements for reserves. Sanitation and motor pool, 12 and 5%. That 5% you see in motor pool increase has a lot to do with the efforts of the motor pool division really assessing their labor cost and their parts cost and everything, and giving us accurate numbers as far as closest to what it cost them to do the service, the internal service to the agency. So really it's a reflection of them balancing out what they are really spending out in order to make sure that this fund always stays at net zero, because last year, if you read the CAFR, we had to do a fund transfer for that in order to balance this. So now we have a strategy as promised to the auditors on how that fund will never be short. It will always be cleared and net zero as it's its purpose and intent. 2%, 3%, and 5% through gas tax fund, 1% fund. And St. Cloud OUC interlocal at 2%. Debt service fund is at nice 18% as we keep paying down our debt, and we are, and it's a great thing to see as we continue to proactively do that. Capital projects this year, 3%. A lot to do with the fact that we were very conservative on what actual projects we wanted to do out there based on the current situation. And that will continue to be assessed as the year goes on, and of course any recommendations that this committee may have, as well as the council. Traffic impact, mobile fee, recreation impact fees, all relevant to whatever projects we have, strategized to fund and listed, as you'll see in your capital listing. 8% increase in the stormwater utility fund. And I think I slipped over the fire impact fee fund, increasing 46 and 52 with the police impact fee fund as well, in order for the support of public safety, which a lot of questions sometimes have arisen, and happy to report that the city of St. Cloud continuously supports and funds the public safety. Currently, they're about 36%, almost 42% of our fund and our budgeting purposes. A lot of investment towards that as we continue to support those operations. Your self-insurance fund medical, you see that 27% increase. That obviously has to do with that 6% increase across all the entire network, and that's our overall funding for that year, going from the $5.3 million to 6.8 year over year. Again, there's that 10%, that you see from the increase of last year. The budget right here will give you just a review of revenue sources. Again, here we are with ad valorem being 30.6% of revenue source and 30.5% of other financing source, and miscellaneous coming in at 6%. Charges for services, 4.5 was at the 10% of revenue sources. Intergovernmental revenue, 14.5, almost 14.6 there. And then other taxes is a 2%, with license and permits coming in at 4.84%. And that is the allocation of our general fund sources that you may be aware of, and obviously reflected for this year's budget. Sorry for scrolling down for you all. Personnel cost is, of course, always the largest expenditure for the general fund, $34.4 million. This is an increase of 9% or $2.8 million. We'll have the general comment as we go through divisions, where a lot of it had to do adjusting for those medical costs, the additional positions we put in were factors to that And this year we took an extra step than just, you know, kind of taking a snapshot of the payroll in 2020, but we actually analyzed current trend and burn on payroll to make sure that we could accurately adjust people or divisions really to actual thresholds that they needed in order to make sure that we didn't have so many corrections and adjustments at the end of the day, or on the other side too much left over that, you know, is going straight into reserve too. We want to make sure people are enjoying those payroll savings throughout their P&L through the year, and we've increased that by providing divisions a P&L that they'll be able to see quarterly performance, just like you all get a report, in order for them to be aware of what's going on in their department and division and where they may have shortfalls. And now we're catching them, or being, again, proactive has been the buzzword, you know, here in finance right now, where we want to give the staff as much visibility of their budget so that we can monitor and control and then have true benchmarks versus, you know, just best guesses. Personnel, there's your 71% of costs. Operating at 11.8, capital at 2.5% of expenditures, and 0.9 is transfers out. Those go normally to like the CRA and funds like that, and then grant and aid at 0.2%.
Hey, Wendy,
Yes, sir.
did you all get a new software or something to help you do this with payroll? Like, what helped you be able to or what do you think is going to help execute this for next year?
So one of the, I'm going to be honest with you that in conjunction with our new deputy finance director, and I think I avoided, I totally missed introducing him, but he's on the call, Mr. Jeffrey Cooper. You know, we partnered together, and he took that old school accounting mentality and did a beautiful spreadsheet where he calculated runs and is giving statistical information as he takes over budget. Moving forward, we have the OpenGov platform that we are currently launching that will be able to have real-time reports as well that will help us monitor trends. So that is the new software, if you could call it that we're going to use that. The budget, after we're done and it goes hopefully through adoption, will be put through OpenGov as well, so we can trend all this out. So OpenGov is definitely our first avenue. We also budgeted this year for the potential of a new accounting system and deploying that in order to kind of get out of the minutia of an AS400 and have real live trending capability and software. So that's the plan, is OpenGov, and then crossing over in conjunction with IT for a new accounting platform to give us a little bit more of the 21st century.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Some of the highlights on the other special revenue funds at 1%, budgeted at $8.4 million. It includes $2.5 million of reserve. This was some of the highlights of it in general support, $438,000 upgrade in software. Vehicles that were necessary in transportation were at $50,000. UAF rifles, vests, and AAV bicycles for the police at $113,300. Fire at $1.1 million, station upgrades and equipment. Parks and Rec to include like things like lakefront pool and park improvements at 1.2. And then of course the natural needed debt service for, you know, some of the leases we have and some of the debt is $1 million. It was by direction in conjunction with the city manager that no new vehicles were to be, we were removing them unless absolutely necessary and justified with a review from fleet as to the feasibility of changing that, and that created a cost savings of $467,000 across the 120 fund. So that currently right now is where we stand with the 1% and taken, you know, every measure we could to be conservative throughout this, like I said, tenure right now. We're providing $240,000 for street lighting materials. Sorry for that, I just saw that tab, but it's $1.1 million in paving being funded through the gas tax. Obviously, the utility fund and enterprises below, this is just a snapshot for you to have in each utility fund, like water, sewer, stormwater, and sanitation. And you can see those highlights of personnel costs ranging between, you know, 839,000 to 4 million in the water fund. And across the board, you'll see that with water coming in at 19.3, sewer at 17.9, stormwater at 15 million, and the sanitation department at 2.3. And as we reviewed above, the percent of change for the funds for 2020 and 2021. All right. So building permit fund, again, a very hefty fund. We're collecting at a great rate. Have a lot of activity in permit funds. This is where we're going to be adding those 2 new positions mentioned above for the trade workers, the senior trade workers. The building fund, you know, has that personnel cost at about 60% of its total expenditures, with 2.2 in capital and then operating at 1.1. Again, right now for current year, we're projecting to have the building fund almost at $3 million of reserve, and so we continue, like I've mentioned before, to monitor this for its performance, because we do need to be compliant with the House bill in reference to the reserves that they could hold. Overall, that's the just highlight for you, big level. I'm going to try to scroll down here because most of the information coming below is informational, and I'll head over to department variances unless anybody has questions or would like me to stop as we scroll down, because the rest is everything compiled that I've really said with statistical information. So let me know that if that works for everybody.
Sounds good.
You got your org chart as you go through. Again, we did the business funds. Let me get to your fund summaries. This is, as I scroll down, you'll see, and if you look in your book, these are pages through 15 through 32 are taking all the information I've correlated into all funds by revenue. As you can see, here's that fund balance forward, what we needed to use. We reduced that by 39%. And then, of course, the percent differences, as you see, by every fund with that 10% increase, as I stated earlier. So this is just an additional review for you to look at fund by fund that regroups everything I've said with the budget highlight. Fund expenditure, same case, balance that, 179 with expenditure changes here by fund. Revenues and financing sources, as you scroll and look through this, it'll tell you exactly where we've taken these funding source or financing sources and where we've allocated those dollars to what type of financing source, such as going through property taxes is funding $14 million, as we talked about, business tax. So it gives you a highlight of all the total revenues, including any fund balance forward that we've used. And in this case, for the general fund, we've used $9.2 million of prior year fund balance moving forward, and you see that reduction from year over year comparative to the 19-20 year. Same thing with expenditures by type. As you read through, you'll get the highlight with each type of category, and what those dollars are allocated towards. So $34 million to those personnel, operating capital, transfer to any other funds, grant and aid, and then of course any contingency used or allocated into the budget, which in this case was $5.9 million of contingency. And to further dissect it, there's an expenditure by function. And here are the expenditures in the general fund by department. City Council and the Finance Committee, this absorption right here, that $3,741, we actually absorbed it in finance in order not to have an additional cost center. So that's why you see that. So that cost is covered with finance now in order just to align and not have so many different department division levels to balance. So we just left it on there to show transparency on that, but that cost is in the finance side. City
Wendy,
manager.
excuse me, Wendy,
Yeah.
am I reading this correctly? But are these the increases per division of what you're being, what
Yes.
each division is asking for?
Yes, sir.
So the 30%, 30%, 13% are all
Yes.
recommended increases that, and this is what we call a lean or tight budget?
Yes, sir. So a lot of it really was more of, you're looking at grouped here by the department, but the way it was leaned out was the fact that the expenditure costs really came from a corporate level, not really the operational level. So that medical cost that aligned, we also adjusted salaries based on actual expenditures, which some divisions would get short, and we adjusted that, which causes FICA to increase, you know, and all taxes to increase as well. So a lot of this is not operational, it's really labor. And you'll see those as you go through the variances, the adjustments we had to make in order to levelize everybody to what they're actually expending. You got to remember that also in this 1920 year, we had more labor burn due to the services through COVID that we had to pay, additional duties with that. We also had, you know, we take into consideration what's happened just in payroll in general, and that's our biggest burn. So a lot of this request is not really operational, and increased expenditures is really the adjustments to these divisions to have the dollars that they need in order to just operate. And you'll see those, like I said, in the variance.
Yeah, it just seemed, I was going through these yesterday and it just, the numbers are, some divisions seem extremely tight, like law enforcement right there, 2%. That's all they have, all their overtime, all this stuff that's been happening in our communities, and everyone else is pushing double digits except for the police department. Makes me wonder a little bit, why is the police department so lean, and the rest of these divisions, I'm looking at a 60, 11, 16, 16, but the police department's 2%.
Right.
I hope
I
that,
agree.
I'd like to get a better understanding of why our police department is so lean, but the rest are considerable increases from 60% to 16, or fire department is at 11%. But one of your biggest divisions is the police department, and they can't get any leaner than that. So I don't.
And if
I
I
need
remember
to-
right, last year, police department asked for 18% increase, and that was one of the highest ones.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
and to respond to the chairman's question, the reason being is that because the police department actually has grabbed and been at staffing levels right now currently with the manning, mostly fully staffed, they only have just about 4 vacancies or so. So they've gotten promotions, they've gotten adjustments to pay. Last year they had an 18% when everybody else was reduced most of the time. And
no,
a lot
not
of these
that
other
many.
divisions-
Not that many. A lot of your division, fire was up high. Look at the last year. I mean, police was high, but there were units much higher. This is, again, it just seems a little odd with all that's going on in our society that the police department is at 2% so lean, but fire never changes. They're always high. I've got 60%, I got 16%. I'm just a little, if they can be that lean, then why can't other divisions be that lean? And that's a Bill question, and something that we need to probably consider. I mean, I'm sure you can blame personnel cost, but we're not giving anybody any raises. We obviously could use a lot more stuff, training, I'm sure, in law enforcement, all that they've been doing. And then we got that, they're probably one of the tightest budgets on here. It kind of makes me wonder what's going on. Bill, that's a question to you.
I'm going to let Chief Gauntlet jump in here, and we've discussed this pretty extensively, and I've got a pretty strong record of supporting the police department over the last 3 years, including significant raises and increases, significant because of their union contract, equipment, training. I feel pretty confident. But this is the budget he came in with this year. The only thing that I recall was taking some vehicles out and a boat. But I'm comfortable with this budget. And
No, I'm good
I'll
with
let the
that.
chief.
I'm good with that, Bill, but we're so good with the chief and being as lean, and I'm sure he's using every penny he can use. My then return to you is, why aren't the other divisions getting as tight? Because
Well, I
trust me,
guess
you look at your fire department last year, I promise you, they were steep last year. I can promise you other divisions were still steep. So I'm just trying to figure out why we accept this. Hey, the chief submits 2% and we're okay with 16, 60, 11, and we're not asking them to reduce as well. Especially if we're not giving raises and we're absorbing this $500,000 for insurance, which are good. I'm sure the chief is being as lean as he can, but I mean, if that's the case, then we should be across the board for all divisions to be able to be that lean.
Well, I'd like to go through some of the variances, and maybe you'll see the picture because we had to make some personnel adjustments throughout the year. And again, some of the budgeting practices of years past, Lindsay, I'm sorry, Wendy's been able to clean that up and would make some administrative adjustments in the budget. And that's why it's not high.
Just because all I heard was, I think, 4 personnel's being added throughout the city. So we can't say we're just loading up, 2 positions for building, 1 for a crossing guard, whatever those are. But again, I'm good with lean budgets, but I'm just kind of trying to figure out why 60%, 11% fire. If you would look back, Wendy, if you could just, I don't know if you have the ability, but just kind of curious, what was the budget increase to last year for fire department?
Last year for the fire department, the increase was 15%.
So again,
10
it's
million,
a double digit increase again. And that's just, again, I'm all for the fire department, stuff like that, but it just seems that I'm looking at 11, 7, 16, 16, and we're not adding a whole lot of personnel from what you said earlier. I'm just kind of curious, it seems awful tight for a police department who's been dealing with a lot of unrest, and they're going to need the training, the tools. And I know, Bill, I'm not saying you don't support that at all, because I know you do.
I know what you're saying, Dave. I got it. But like I said, if you recognize Chief Gauntlet and get his take on it.
Be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon and Chairman. We made a conscious decision this year, after knowing where the city's budget was going to be lean, to trim our budget down to an operating level. We're very confident from our training and our in-house training that we're not going to lose any aspects of that. We also were focusing our attention on those 4 new positions that were so critical. And that's where most of our attention was driven, was to try to prop up those 4 positions that we need boots on the ground, knowing the impact on the city financially was going to be there. So to offset the cost of the personnel, we trimmed our budget back to accommodate it. We've also effectively worked our fleet very efficiently over the years to maintain a quality fleet, so that this year we could pause a little bit in the purchase of some of the vehicles this year and pick it up again next year.
All right, Chief. Again, I know you're going to run a tight budget, and again, I know fire's doing that. I'm just surprised that you are probably one of the lowest on this page, and one of the biggest divisions, but the rest are considerably, a lot higher than what you're doing. So it's just,
we knew that finance was going to be challenged this year based on the revenues, and again, that's why we were aggressive with getting the COPS grant for those 4 new positions, knowing what the financial impact was going to be on the rest of the city. But it was critical we get those personnel on board to be able to cover the growth of the city. So we trimmed out one in order to accommodate the other, basically. And I'm confident Dave Pearson did a fabulous job with the budget again this year. It will be just fine going forward.
And that's good. And again, I think that's commendable, and maybe that's what we as a city need to look at from all divisions with how the economy is going. I mean, again, hats off to the chief, and I'm sure fire is down some 4% from what they did last year. But again, we're still double digits a lot. And maybe we can just look into it a little more. I'm just curious. That's all, Bill. I'm not doubting your support.
No, that's what you're supposed to be doing, Dave. That's what you guys are supposed to be doing. That's fine.
Is it reasonable to get backup for anything that's in the double digits? 10% or more?
What do you mean, Jeremy?
Invoices, quotes, whatever's causing that variance. Normally on a corporate level, you have to get a lot of backup for a 5% variance. So 10 would be generous.
I guess that's a Wendy question or a Bill question.
I'll defer to Wendy. Yes, I think, we definitely can justify this,
Yeah, if, looking for, any transparency for that and backup, we can do that for, just, what, percentage would you like me to look at, like, overall, and, that way we can produce what the variance is what's causing it.
Backup for any of the departments we're looking at that's looking at 10 or more.
Okay. The 10% or more will submit what the variance is being, what's driving that variance to you all.
And I guess
Sorry,
as
I'm
we,
just writing.
I guess as we go through this, we'll see, because I remember last year we had divisions that were asking for more money and they hadn't even spent the money that they asked for the year before. So I'm assuming, hopefully we won't see as much as that when we go through this.
Yeah, there's, we try to monitor as best we can, with that to minimize that from last year. And like I said, we have, current run numbers right now to compare it with that. So let me, scroll down to the department division so we can make it through that. Bear with me, as like I said, the other ones were information. No. Sorry. These are just your revenue reports as I highlight them through, for the general fund water, listing just, the current, proposed, revenue for you. And I'm just gonna scroll down to the expenditure part by department. All right. This is, first one is, council, and I will scroll down to the variances to review anything above $2,000, unless you guys want to go, let me know if you scroll up after you see the variances, from each division and you want to discuss them further.
Hey, Wendy, if you could, just if you can shoot us, I see it now, but excuse me, whenever you get on something, say that's page 48.
Sure.
Because you're scrolling pretty quickly now, but I mean, I see 40 and just, it'll make me, I can go through it easier.
Sure. I'm just looking at that. We're on the first page of the council one, department is page 40 on your book. And I'm just trying to scroll down to find the variance that is behind. It should be behind and is page, well, we don't our page, but after page 40, you should be on the last part of the city council is page 40, and then you should see your variance, which starts with professional services for council. Does everybody see that?
Is that the little side sheet variance report?
Yes, variance report is
31.
Element 30.
Shows the 31-00 professional services 25-2. Is that what we're referring to?
Yes.
Ours looks different than your sheet. I don't know if you realize that or not, but ours is almost just a itemized list, a breakdown.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a page number, but I get it. I see what it is. So it just, I would say 40 and then,
Sure.
maybe 40 and a half, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that.
But it's different than what you're showing us on the screen.
still seeing the screen first. There it goes. Sorry about that. Okay.
There, that's what we look at. Yep.
Okay. Okay,
the
here
one.
we are. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Nope, that's perfect.
All right. So, city council variances, the first one, above the thresholds are professional services. There was additional costs and, services for lobbying fees, lobbying efforts for the legislation and Ray Robinson in addition to, that federal lobbyist cost, which caused the 25,200 variance. Income, services, devices, and accessories. There was an iPad cost needed to support council meetings, along with equipment in the support of council meetings. And then promotional, the original budget entry for 2019-2020 was $23,350. Due to some unexpected expenditures, they did a budget transfer to cover those expenses. And that caused their initial budget in 2019 to be lower, causing the variance to go higher. But they really didn't increase costs. They stayed the same, but they did a budget transfer in 1920, so that caused that variance. Does that make sense? Because I know it's a kind of a convoluted there. And the final one, 64, that's equipment and machinery and equipment at 198,000. This is the remodeling of council chambers for the ADA compliance and presentation system upgrade for them.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to talk about several items. First off, talk about lobbying. This year, we did receive an allocation from the state legislature, and it was signed by the governor for $300,000 for dredging at Chisholm Park. We were also funded for the seaplane base, $375,000 and $1.2 million for Motor Road, but those were vetoed by the governor because of the COVID-19. I felt confident we're going to get those. So what we invested in our lobbyists is about $170,000. We got $300,000 this year, so that was a good investment. The other thing I want to talk about, the remodeling the council chambers, that's something that council wanted to do for several years. It took a couple of years to put the construction plans together, but there's a potential that might be coming out of here. If we can get it together in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we have enough money from this year's budget to fund that. So that line item may be subtracted from that. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Sturgeon.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Gerdes.
Even if we do end up having the money this year, do you think it's wise to go ahead and spend that in consideration that we don't know what the COVID fallout is still going to be?
Well, yes and no. Again, we because of the cost savings, one of the reasons the council wanted to move forward with that, and that was directed by the council, is because we're in a virtual environment right now. It's a good time to do that remodel. So I hear you, but it was directed by the council. So.
I'm going to scroll down. Unless there's more questions, feel free to stop me as I go down. The next one you should find would be City Clerk, page 46. And that goes 2 pages down to 46, 47, and you should find it starting after 47, the variance report for City Clerk. Travel and per diem, the variance was $2,550. Due to in-state travel was added for some state law trainings for staff for open records, the clerk, continuing education, and then the administrative physician support training. That caused that increase for some required state law training that they needed. Maintenance contracts, for 13,009 was the addition of the new ADA compliant agenda software. And then 55 for training is 2,550. It was a variance, was the addition of the in-state skill path training for administrative positions. Those are 3 components with variance explanations for exceeding the 2,000 for the city clerk.
Okay.
Legal services had no variance difference, and the following admin support, which is page 43, as I scroll down, 43. And the reason it's out of order is not because I can't count, it's just that the order of the cost center comes different than the page numbering for it, and we had to adjust it for that. So I'm aware, and I'll update that page numbering, but we had to do it that way because the system populates it that way because of how the cost center sits, between the clerk being in the 30 element, and then her other cost centers that fall under her being in the 20-30 department division. So then you will find the variance for that in salary and wages. In the 1920, that's what the fiscal year was analyzed. This current fiscal year had a shortfall of 15%. Increase was set to estimate and reflect that actual salary increase or salary expense. So we updated and adjusted that from actual expenditure runs that they did. The pension increase, 22, is those contribution amounts that we talked in the general fund, where we're increasing from 14 to about 14.87, almost 15%, another 1.5%. And this was based on the actuary valuation report for the city overall. So you'll see this coming across every division because we had to, update these thresholds based on the actuary valuation report. The health insurance, those are the increases to the employer with a 6% overall. And again, this will be one of those elements that will continuously be repeated throughout the different divisions. 2020 in other contractual services, this was for the repair of the humidity damage from the repairs from the humidity, the damage and the continued preservation of historic records as listed. And in training, 2,500 for the CPM training for the deputy city clerk this year. Next on the board is 3010, the city manager. Page 44 with variance following page 44. As reviewed, this is the analysis that you see continuously for salaries and wages. You'll see that we analyzed the 1920 on top of the payroll, population we did, and the increase is set to actually reflect that tempo of actual salary expense. So we adjusted it in order to cover the expenditures that they're having versus having to do multiple adjustments towards the end of the year with influx in that, as it's come through. And it'll be more represented with, like I said, the actual tempo of salary. Common services, this was due to additional devices that were needed operationally. And other current charges, for skipping 4601 maintenance contracts for 35.5. This is the allocation. This is the portion that the city manager pays or his division pays for the yearly contract that was moved up to the city manager department. So OpenGov is split by different departments and divisions, and this is the cost that this division will pay for that, and it increased his positive variance to 35.5 because of that. Other current charges, $2,000 was due to the addition of the director's retreat and refreshments for staff and celebrations and recognitions for the year. The increase to that was $2,000. $2,670 in operating supplies. This is the cost of the standard operating procedure software powered BMS, which will be implemented. 55 training, 36,006. This was due to the addition of the diversity, equity, and inclusion training and executive training programs. $6,400 in equipment and machinery was due to the remodeling of the third floor, including offices and complete furnishings, causing that variance of 95.5.
Hey, Wendy, the Power DMS, what is that for? Because we use that. Is that something that's going to be citywide or just for a certain division?
I will defer to who the city manager would like that answer to, sir, because I am not aware of the deployment or anything scheduled. I can't talk to that.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir. That will be deployed citywide. That's the additional licenses for additional staff. And my goal is to get, again, all of our standard operating procedures written, revised, and then put on that platform to make sure we have real-time record keeping and availability to our employees.
So this fee is that's all it took, is that little bit of money to do citywide, or it seems awful inexpensive?
Actually, I think it was 16,000 from last year, and then it added another, because it's a variance over 2,000, another $2,600 for additional licenses we had to purchase.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Can you speak more to the training?
Yes, sir. One of the initiatives I have is the equity and inclusion and diversity training. As you know, a lot of issues in society right now, and I've made a conscious decision to address that throughout the city. We're in the process of doing an equity and inclusion survey right now with our employees, and we want to make sure that everybody has the proper training to be able to work as a cohesive team moving forward. Additional executive level training for myself and my senior managers to make sure we're effective leaders and managers. The majority of this, however, is the diversity, equity, and inclusion training, and that's for the entire city staff.
Okay, that makes sense. You feel like it's going to help bring more unity, increase morale, stuff like that?
That is correct. And again, I have a commitment to my employees, Mr. Brown, to make sure they come to work, feel included, that their diverse backgrounds celebrated, and we can move the city forward as a shining light for the rest of society.
Sounds great. Awesome.
I have a question on the allocation of OpenGov. Where's the rest of the allocation?
The rest of the allocation, you'll see it through planning, finance, all the cost centers in the general fund, a portion to the water fund and sewer funds as well.
Is there a reason to spread it out other than just the funds? Why spread it within the general fund?
Well, because normally, our allocation methodology is when we implement something citywide, those that use it or have service, like our enterprise funds, use it, as well as our general fund. It's our methodology to spread it out by square footage and usage of a system so that we can it's a shared cost because everybody's going to use it. So we're deploying a system, citywide, and therefore, like OpenGov, there will be features that are going to be used at the city manager's level for planning, for finance, for the water fund to report meter usage, water consumption, things of those nature. So the methodology is to spread that cost around instead of the general fund being the only one to absorb the cost.
Oh, I understand that. I was just wondering why it's spread with city departments within the general fund.
Well, my method to it was, and thought process was that absorbing and just hitting one department is kind of rough on their budget, just reporting wise. We allocate it out in order to spread and review that cost so that it's feasible. Like the little guy, like a little department compared to a larger department isn't hit as hard. It's a little bit more allocated comparative to their budget. That's just a preference, you know what I mean, in order to share costs. Nothing really, no reason other than instead of showing, in $100,000 hit to one division, we spread it out through the general fund in order, to kind of balance out the budget in that sense, at the line level, to provide just evenness. It would be a hard hit to just allocate it to IT, and eat up their expenditure budget just in one shot versus allocating it throughout and everybody takes a portion. It's just the cost sharing, you know, is a little bit better for the absorption of the budget.
Just makes for long POs.
Yeah. All right, moving down, public information, 3015, page 45, variances after that, starting with salaries and wages. This year, the implementation of not the cost, but the increase in the transfer of a PIO director to this division caused a variance of $90,773. With that, obviously due to the transfer of any costs with salaries, we have the FICA cost that increases. The pension, $12,242, is those contributions across the PIO, any employees in PIO, is the contribution amounts, as I mentioned before, to reflect actual, really not expense payroll, but it's the actuary's report that tells us how much we're increasing that by based on the staffing in each division. Same thing with the $7,972 of health insurance, adjusted overall because of the increase in medical and reflection of actual expenditures in health insurance to the employer. In professional services, 31, $47,696. This is a citywide marketing was increased in order for the objective to complete a marketing platform. A marketing specialist position was denied or not approved. Therefore, we allocated some marketing dollars in order for them to still achieve what they hopefully needed to do and provide some cost savings through not bringing on a full-time employee, plus all the benefit charges at this time. And then additionally, there was a need for a digital specialist temp or some form of a temp. So those dollars were allocated in professional services for them to have those services available to them. And again, like I said, the marketing specialist not being approved for this budget. Communication and accessories, $5,020. This is the media services technology needs for virtual meetings. Again, also additional devices for the additional head count that they've done. So that's the variance there in communication and accessories. In promotional advertising, $89,005. This is the print and social media marketing, as well as also reclassifying costs to this account that was previously allocated in other departments. So they're centralizing a little bit more of the marketing side of the business into this area. $43,995 in operating supplies variance. This was in effect of the media software, wireless microphones, and then camera accessories that were needed or are needed. And in 64 in equipment, $37,220, media specialist Cactus video server, a laptop, computer, iPad software, and Granicus government transparency software were all drivers for the variance.
I have a question on the promotional advertising. I see that you're consolidating all that, but it's still, that cost is still in a lot of different funds and departments. Is there still a need for that?
Deputy City Manager, would you like to answer to the strategy for that?
Yes, if I can be recognized. This is Veronica Miller, Deputy City Manager. The City Council had a strategic planning workshop with the City Manager back, I believe, in February, and we received direction that they wanted to see more communication to the residents, that we have a lot of great programs going on, but the residents were unaware of all the successes that the departments were having, all of the activities that were ongoing. And so we have decided to try to centralize some of the marketing and also increase the marketing. So part of what we've done is this year, for a very short period of time. We had a contract with Positively Osceola, which is $2,500 a month, to have more outreach, which has been very positively received. So part of the increase is so that we can have that contract on the entire annual basis. Additionally, we had done part year contract with the Orlando Weekly to share events that we have within all of Central Florida. However, what we want to do is more than just the Orlando Weekly. What we wanted to do is also add for Osceola Women's Magazine, Orlando Sentinel, Elle Sentinel, Osceola Star, add some bill inserts through utility billing, really make a concerted effort. Our new communications director is working on a marketing program that we're going to get with all of the departments and still move forward, putting out centralized messaging and ensure we're prioritizing what goes out. Now, we're working more with Parks and Recreation, but they're doing the, we're going to help them more with the large events, but their normal, smaller programming, they're still going to have to do some of that themselves in-house. We'll be helping to market the larger events and the larger things like that. And other departments still have needs also. Utilities, they still have needs beyond the information that we're trying to get out. Additionally, PD has their own public information office. The fire department also has their own public information. And we're going to work closely with them, but they also have their own needs to be communicating with the community. Is there more questions on that item? I heard that I might have been a little pixelated for part of it.
Yeah, you were pixelated a lot of it. So it was very sporadic. You could hear you on and off, but was trying to get the gist of it. Anyone have any other questions over? All right, thank you.
Hi, I understand there was, I may have had some communications.
It's still happening.
Can you guys?
No, it's still
hear me now?
Very pixelated.
Do you want me to repeat what I said?
I don't know if the issue's been fixed, number one, but
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can anyone?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Wendy, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. Yes, sir.
Yeah, she's very pixelated. We're having a hard time hearing her unless someone has a.
Would you like me to try again?
No, it's still happening. You can barely hear you now.
I can call in with my cell phone if that would be better.
Whoever asked that question, that's up to them if they want more clarification on that issue, because you were very pixelated. You still are.
That's
Maybe we
okay,
could
Dave.
do,
I think they got the
we can-
gist of it. They're good, they said, so we can continue moving forward. But thank you.
Very well, and we'll move forward, and if she can connect and we can round back again if she would like to revisit that, so we could give her that opportunity.
No problem. But
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're moving to human resources.
I can.
3020. And that is page, as I'm scrolling down in the share, 48, 49. And it begins with the health insurance increase of 8,625 variance. 6% overall, again, contribution for that. 2,500 in professional services. This is the actuary's cost for the actuary report for workers' compensation that was added. This is a requirement for audit. Last year, it was mistakenly removed, and we had to do a budget transfer this year to cover that cost, but it's a requirement from audit, from the auditors for the calculation of workers' comp. So that caused the variance this year. 35,827 in maintenance contracts. This is specific to what requirements Human Resources have with the NeoGov program that is the city's using. The improvements will cause automation to be improved. A lot of the processes right now they're stating are being used online, and this will help expand like things that like new hires through the NeoGov program and onboarding. And then the NeoGov performance will allow them also to expand in ways to reach out to employees via internet. So that will be is proposed for this year, causing the variance. And then 7,275 in training. The original budget entry for 2019, the current year, 2020, was 19,682. There was actually budget transfers to cover unexpected expenditures that's actually been typical, right now based on operational needs. The increase in training, also that they're requesting is required actually in order to comply for those changes for the protected employee classifications that COVID-19 laws have implemented. So I just wanted to give you a little background on some budget transfers that needed to be done to cover certain costs that were transferred originally, causing again that variance to the budget amount for 2020 to be reduced, causing a larger variance, but really it was primarily because of this requirement and training that they need to comply with COVID-19 laws. Questions, open for questions for you, and if not, I'll proceed.
Now look at the detail pages. The actual increase is 75,500 for professional services. What's the difference there?
75,000. Let me tell you when I start. I've got to flip through pages. Give me 1 second. So
It's
the
page
difference
48.
is- So I'm trying to give you two comparative years at one time. Okay, 30/20. All right, so in the previous fiscal year in the 31 implement, they had pre-employment physicals for both the general fund and the police department. That provided no increase, but there was an increase in pre-employment physicals for DOT at $150 times 15 comparative to last year. They added 3 more physical amounts, 12 physicals versus 15 this year. So that caused an increase from 1,800 to 2,250 from last year. Workers' comp, drug, alcohol tests did not increase. And then the remaining increase came from, oh, that's really all they had. So that means that the remaining increase that they had were those budget transfers that they had. If you notice on 31, I'm going to scroll up. If you take the difference between the DOT physicals that they increase, it doesn't cover the amount that it's showing. But if you go to element 31, you notice how the current year is 24,000, and then the previous, the previous year, right? See that, right? 2,000 right there in previous year. That's because they took budget transfers out of here, and then they paid their regular professional services. So this number starts skewing the new budget request, but they really didn't ask for more money. It's just because they had to do a budget transfer from professional services to another element in their budget. They reduced their 1920 budget, causing a larger variance. Does that make sense? So their initial budget in 2020 was the same that we're talking about now, minus the 3 physicals that they're adding, but then they had budget transfers throughout the year that reduced their original budget in 2020 to $2,000, causing the variance between current year and previous year to be larger, but not due to expenditure. Scrolling down to the next division, 3510. This is procurement administration. It starts on page 50. Going down to 51, we have the warehouse following because the variances will be together. So we have 51, 50, 51, 52. Grant on 53, and then variance for procurement and warehouse, which were the only ones that had variances above 2,000. Just giving you a little time to scroll down or flip to the page. Okay. 45-00, the insurance variance was 2,754 in procurement. This was due to the general liability and property liability premiums rising, and then this is just cost allocated based on square footage. So we had an overall city increase in general liability and property liability. So that caused the variance for this division. In maintenance contracts, they had 4,715. Listed on the explanation was due to an increase in purchasing and inventory maintenance costs for the HTE products. They also increased Adobe license costs, so they had an increase there. And then in addition to the Clover system annual maintenance, which is the PO printer for them, and DocuSign costs that has obviously presented itself due to COVID and obviously streamlining that process as well. Those are the 2 variances that procurement presented. In salaries and wages, 42.9 was the allocation for the warehouse full-time position. In previous years, a full-time position for the warehouse has been paid 100% by the general fund. And calculations were presented with, so we could prorate it between the water and the sewer funds because this position services those funds as well. And so we did a 70-30 split between the general fund for the position, causing an increase. So we're covering some of the costs because it doesn't only service the water and sewer funds. So we had to adjust that to make it, a little bit more real to what was being processed and done by this position. This new allocation, of course, created the following variance for FICA due to salary increase that we shifted, or really the shift of cost. Somebody's got some feedback in the back, but then pension 4,006, again, those contributions related to the actuary reports for the city. 10,050, is the increase to the employer, that's 6%. 22,000 in maintenance contracts was the upgraded an upgrade to the updated technology for the fuel system. And equipment and machinery at 3,000 was the upgrade, or is proposed for an upgrade to 2 computer systems.
Hey, Wendy, just what is what is this technology for fuel systems?
If I may, I'll reach out to the procurement director, Ms. Leslie Flores, if she's available.
Yes, hi, may I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Leslie Flores, Procurement Services Director. This is to move it to a cloud-based solution. Right now, IT recommended, due to the outdated technology and equipment, that a cloud-based solution would be better.
And what does this system, what's it going to provide you? What's it doing for you?
Oh, that monitors our fuel tanks, our fuel system. It tells us when we need to reorder fuel, everything to do with the tanks, merging with fleet, the usage, how much the vehicles are using. We'll provide reports.
Do you guys have the system where you put the nozzle in and there's a computer basically, or device there, and it does mileage? It does, all they need to do is type their ID number in, or is it different?
Well, that's what we're hoping to move to. Right now, we still use key fobs, and you'll put the key fob in and you will manually type in the mileage. So hopefully this will get rid of that, so it will be recognized electronically.
Okay, but I think you have to attach those to the devices and to the vehicles to do that.
Yes, we did that a few years ago. It didn't work very well. We have a new fleet superintendent who is doing a great job and making some good recommendations, so that may be something that we move to in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving down to finance, page 54, as well as accounting, and the following page 55 and 56. Beginning with the finance department, salaries and wages, we analyze the actual performance. This is the alignment to those reflections. We also had a reclassification of the budget manager position to the deputy position when Dawn left. So we had that, and then we had some adjustments to salary based on the pay study that had not been done, which have started affecting those expenditures. So we aligned that for the following year. This caused $3,301 in FICA contributions, adjusted to reflect the actual payroll expense, and that's a direct relationship, of course, to those costs. The pension and ICMA costs of $8,013, or the variance to it, were those contributions based on that percentage adjustment and the personnel on staff. Workers' comp, this is in direct relation to the above costs with salaries and wages at $4,427. And then $4,777 variance increases the in-state additional CGFO CPE certification, travel costs, and the SGFOA conference hotel increase. The rates to stay obviously increase, and they are a requirement for the accountants, including myself, the director, on staff. And then we're waiting for possible webinar opportunities to, if that's possible and they give us a schedule, then obviously we'll go that route to do the cost savings there and not expense travel. And that's going to be dependent on how, obviously the conditions are at this point with travel and in-state and out-state. Salaries and wages, this is the addition. What you're seeing is the variance of the addition of the position for the integration specialist financial systems position. And then, of course, the reclassification of the budget administrator to deputy finance director. Those are the variances causing that. That's one of the integration specialists, one of the positions listed as the new add-ons that will go towards IT. Overtime, this is a $3,000 variance, larger volume, obviously for the processing and year-end preparation. Traditionally in finance, or in accounting, it had not been budgeted accurately on the expenditures of overtime, so we calculated what needed hours would be for the preparation of schedules, the audit prep for year-end, and we have a younger staff who we feel we're going to need a little bit to cover to make sure that they can meet the deadlines for the auditors. So that was allocated into this year's budget. And that went from, that's $2,000 in auditor year-end preparation, and then $7,000 for the larger volume of processing. Right now we're processing over 10,972 transactions a day. And that's just in one category, so that's a variance, a cause for variance there. I believe the FICA is next with 5,075. That's a corresponding increase with the additional position and reclass. 6% for accounting impacted at 8,894, and then maintenance contracts at 2,653. This is the original budget in 2020 was budgeted for 11,654. Then these funds were transferred over to cover unexpected costs and for operational needs. And this was, we needed to get a interim temp at an executive level when we had the budget manager depart. So that was the reason why we did a budget transfer in 1920. This reduced that original budget to $9,000 comparative to what it was last year, causing a larger variance. But the driver, like I said, it was a temp that was hired in order to support while we transitioned without the budget manager. Information technology, IT, page 69. GIS after that in 61. We had a little media services following that. If you keep flipping, and then you'll find the variance after page 62 under the information technology tab. 57,315 in salary and wages. This cost was shifted from a project. Had an employee originally paid through the Trackit. It has been moved to the general fund for the IT staff, and then also the addition to the new position that you saw listed in the beginning with the wireless engineer cost. Overtime at 2,690 is due to 208 hours of overtime scheduled at 13.51 average rate, with 300 hours due to standby, 300 hours standby, which includes the system engineer and the PC network analyst in the hourly rate for this overtime calculation. That's what caused the variance at 2,690. Special pay 2,100, adding the wireless engineer and one staff cost for this fiscal year for this department. And then in FICA 9,960, again, additions to the new positions that were listed above, cause FICA to go up. Pension, these are the contributions based on that actuary report, 19,255. And then the 6% increase in health insurance at 21.7K was the impact for IT. Repair and maintenance was a variance of 20,000 for the Fuel Master FMS upgrade per the city manager. And in capital outlay, 27,000. This was for the media services Cactus hardware software solution that you will see listed through and allocated out through different divisions. And just below, and I'm just going to scroll, there is no variances reported above 2,000 for the GIS department. Okay.
We're adding a new employee in this department too, are we not?
Yes, ma'am. We're adding the wireless engineer position.
So that's not reflected in the increases. I don't know if you want to add that or not, but there's a whole section starting at 1,200 with those increases.
Say again, Ms. Gerner, I'm sorry.
Under the information systems division, beginning at 1,200. It's just you don't have that shown as a variance. I didn't know if you wanted to add that new position there as a variance or not.
This 1,200 right here on the screen, the $57,000 variance?
No, on page 69.
69, that's top one, correct? Okay, I see it.
Yeah, there's midway down another 1,200. 591, 1,200.
I see it. $57,315 is that what you just reported? Ah, I see it. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I will confirm with the division department on their variance report on that. For the 57,000, but that is, yes, I'll add the variance will come from the addition to the other position.
Good catch there, Jeanette.
I just want Wendy to know that we are actually paying attention.
Oh, I know you are. I appreciate the extra set of eyes, Ms. Gerner.
It's
I'm
hard, but we are.
I know. It's not the most interesting thing. I apologize. I blame my father. I was going to be an art major. So here we go. This is an update. We're going to be updating, obviously, planning and zoning is community development. And they begin on page 63. We had to do that adjustment because I have a cost centers report, so please excuse the page numbering. Community development came in with $86,524 in their salary and wage element. This was the analysis from aligning the budget with the expected projections for staffing that we projected out and for that'll be reflected in 2021. The special pay, this is, I just wanted to give you a definition because there's, last year there was a little bit of a question like special pay. Special pay is used and classified as flexible, like additional pays that can be used. And in this case, a lot of times it's used for the Christmas, bonuses that go in, if you want to call it that. But we do $215 so that the average employee gets $150 after taxes, and that's what that is. So I wanted to give you those calculations because it's multiplied, obviously, by the authorized position in each department. It is budgeted, a little bit above because some employees don't rate it don't rate the full amount. Let me correct myself. Based on tenure, if they're here, a little less than under the year, they rate 50 versus 150. So we budget across the level for it, but I wanted to give you an explanation based on last year's question of what special pay was.
Wendy, it seems like they're missing some other variances on that page as well, that department is. Do you happen to know what the increase is for 4,900, the other current charges?
Sure, give me 1 second just to flip through, and I will tell you.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
just the pension and the health insurance is missed on that. So it's just minor detail, but this one's further down.
Yeah, for 49,000, you're probably seeing the 9,414 variance.
Right.
This was based on the costs that are going in there are advertising costs for public hearings at 32,000, and then recordings at the courthouse 2,005, and $8,000 in surveyor plat review. I can ask Mr. Anderson if you'd like any further clarification of the need there on 49.
No, not at all. I just didn't know if, again, that they wanted to include that in their variances.
Yes, ma'am. I'm noting it right now to add that for the 49 element. So before the
Also,
final goes.
2,200 and 2,301.
Okay, the pension and ICMA, I got that. Okay. Okay. Have that noted. And we're scrolling down to building maintenance, 5520. We scroll down to the variance. Page 65, and right after page 65 is the variance, starting with salaries and wages. In salaries and wages, 103,497, this is a direct impact from the new positions that were listed above, the 2 senior trade workers. Even though the variance obviously is showing the full cost, it is by direction that these positions would not be hired on until mid-year of 2021, having some cost savings there. Special pay, again, like I explained before, that flexible pay, 215 times the authorized positions. In FICA, that's a direct relationship to those salaries and wages with 21,096 in pension for the contribution by actuarial report. And then the health insurance impact that has been reported as 6% at 38,249 was what impacted building maintenance. The variance for 110,631, the other contractual services, this was the increase for temporary custodial staff needed to cover, any of the call-offs as well as new building cleanups. And this is also direct relation to the fact that they originally requested custodian positions, but those were, not approved, and it was better served that new custodians coming in, we would contract out to save ourselves from, a full-blown employee with benefits and burns. So this is where you see the reflected cost of doing that versus carrying on a full FTE with benefits. Insurance, this is the increase to the general liability and property insurance, 10,639, based on square footage is the allocation, causing the variance for 10K. And then another 10K in maintenance contracts. This is the added cost for generator maintenance, as they take care of that for the city. And then 4,100 is the additional cost was due to the building coverage needed for new maintenance staff. So all the operating supplies they need in order to cover these new, building or the building coverages that they need to do for the maintenance staff, the operating supplies needed.
Hey, Wendy,
Scrolling down to, yes, sir.
what is the, how many staff members is this custodian service providing? I mean, 110 seems pretty steep, but if you're talking a dozen people, then we're doing great.
The 103 that you see is actually the variance for adding 2 senior trade workers full-time. These are new positions that you saw at the beginning of the budget, if you remember.
I'm talking about the 3,400 account there.
Oh, the 3,400. At this point, they were hiring on 3 custodial temporary custodial staff for the coverage they needed. Let me call on building for any additional, as far as, you know, the staff count, for you.
Yeah, I'm just curious how much, I mean, it seems like a lot of money, then why not just you'd probably hire 2 employees to do the job, maybe. I don't know if that will help or not.
I mean, if I can get,
Mr.
Mr.
Dethridge?
Dethridge, are you on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what our intentions are is to ultimately transition the staff over to contractual service. We do not intend to eliminate any staff that we have now, but any additional staff that we need, we intend to get through contractual services.
Well, I kind of get that, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, what's the trade-off right now? Just say hypothetically you have 2 custodians and this increase is providing another 6 custodians to work 30 hours a week. I mean, versus do we hire 2 more or 3 more and we're covering everything for less money? I don't know. I just don't know what we're paying and what are we getting for this money?
Right. Well, we've run the numbers and it works out better for us to contract out for our custodial services than it does to do it in-house.
And where are they doing this? Just City Hall? Where's this service provided?
It depends on the need, sir. It's at various facilities.
There's no consistency to this. It doesn't make sense. If the City Hall needs cleaning every week, every day, that would make sense. I mean,
Right. Well, we try to keep the same people at the same facility, obviously.
so is this backup for them? I'm still not seeing where these.
Mr. Briner, can I?
Yes,
see
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, thanks. Actually, and this is validated in the Matrix study also, that they recommend that we transition away from hiring full-time custodians and go with a contract service. So those staff members, and like we had additional staff members that we had to use from a contractual basis because of the COVID-19 to clean twice a day. And they are at different facilities. They clean the police department, they clean the city hall, the fire stations. You know, they do major cleaning there. So that's what the strategy's been. And like I said, that was a recommendation from Matrix. Also, I just saw that this evening when I was reviewing that.
No biggie. I'm just trying to, I just didn't know if it was consistent. Are they always working here, working there? I mean, if it makes more sense to hire out, then I get it. I just was curious. It seems like a lot of money. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving down to police. On page 87, sorry, 67, 68, and variance starts on 68. First variance, 159,842 increase is due to the addition of 4 new police officers, SROs. The overtime is for 4 new officers as well positioned at 16,754. Flexible ad pays and specific to that manning amount is 106,754. FICA at 5,671. This is that direct relationship to salary and wage increase. Pension contributions. This is the one you'll see big in public safety, just because their amounts were at about 22% and we moved them up to 32.35 to adjusted based on the actuary report this year. Health insurance, the increase with the 6% that we're absorbing is 85,634. The other contractual services, 17,986. This is the added new training and policy services increase, and the increase in recruiting test costs under other contractual services. Insurance increase in GL and property was 68,967. And as mentioned before, it is the increase to the general liability and property insurance. Repairs and maintenance at 11,155. This is due to the One Solution maintenance cost increase. Also the maintenance on 800 radio system infrastructures, infrastructure for portable mobiles, and the Clear Intel investigation maintenance. Operating supplies, the variance of 19.7 was a replacement for the cross-body worn cameras and ballistic helmets. Crime scene supplies increase, and the advanced undercover equipment need. This is that increase to cost per gallon, and also the additional routes, if you want to call them, or sorry if I don't have the right terminology, for the new positions that are coming aboard, 29,181. 3,400 variance in training. Again, this is a 1920 effect from the budget transfers that was done in order to cover some costs, and also on top of that was the stress analyzer training increase, the sex crimes homicide training increase, and then the increase of those 4 new officers in training caused a variance of 3,400. And in capital improvements, $9,000 to increase office size in the detective unit. Also to note at the beginning with the salaries and wages, these 4 new police officer positions are those that we just got awarded a grant for. $500,000 is the match from the feds over 3 years, and then our contributing match for the city is $557,000 over 3 years. So just wanted to note that we are getting grant reimbursement in 2021. I'm going to go through police and now their comm division. Page after 69 was the variance report for comm. In special pay, that there is your explanation for 4,160 at 215 for authorized positions. Health insurance at 28.8 is at 6% increase overall. $12,000 in contractual services. This is for the new dispatch remote services. And then in training, a variance increase at 7,645. This was in direct relation to, again, a budget transfer. The overall reduction from the account was an initial budget of 30,003, and then with budget transfers to cover unexpected costs was reduced to 13,007, causing a higher variance on this report. Not really that they're adding an increase in training dollars in comm. Moving down the row through the police department is the EOC Disaster Relief Division. And that will begin page 70. And right after page 70 is your variance report with only 3,720 reported in comm services. This is adding satellite phones, 3 of them, and its service costs. In also the police department, the code enforcement division. Moving down page 71, after page 71, you'll flip and see your variance report there. This is the analysis of 1920 to align the budget with those projected staffing costs at 7,455. And in contractual services, a variance of 2,000, which is the projected increase in lot clearing, the mowing, and then pool covering in code enforcement. Any questions on that department, sorry?
No.
Fire control, starting with 6510. page 73 and 74 for fire control. Variance report is after page 74. Salaries and overtime, salaries and wages. This is this analysis for 1920 to align this budget, 194,349 in variance for them, so we made that adjustment. Overtime, this was a $10,000 variance due to the cadet advisor overtime time required at 286 hours times a $35 average rate for the implementation of the cadet program. In special pay, 54,506, the same explanation with flexible additional pays at 215 times the amount of authorized positions. Increase of 38,003 was in direct relationship to the salary increase. And then health insurance, 52,799 was the increase, and due to that 6% increase across the board, and that's the impact to fire. 20,316, we made this adjustment for fire and workers' comp due to the actual workers' comp cases that have increased throughout this with direct relation with COVID. Normally departments and divisions pay for that cost, so we adjusted that amount because this department's had more cases and needed to cover this cost so they didn't have shortfalls during the year. In professional services, 204,100. This is allocating $200,000 in design and architectural engineering for the start of the new fire station, new build, so they could start that project as we continue to look for or wait for the funding for potentially a grant and or how we're gonna do a $7 million build for the new fire station. So we're starting with the architectural and engineering, and then the remaining amount in the variance was promotional assessment testing. These were services due to unexpected retirements and also new hire testing fees. In travel and per diem, the variance of 4,046 was caused by the Blue Card and Structured Conference, which is a requirement and is also out of state. Across the network, the city manager has canceled all out of state unless a certification or it is required by the department, and this is the case in this element. In communications, 11,846, this is the restructure of the fire EMS. They took a smart wholesale plan from the EMS budget in previous fiscal. It should be fiscal, not physical. And then addition of services for MDTs and portable devices. And also there's an increase in cost, in cable costs for that. In utility services, this is an adjustment that we made that utilities were transferred, as you can tell, from the EMS budget to fire. They placed also an additional dumpster at the logistics and building, and then they increased costs for electric and water based on actual expenditures, and so we adjusted that for them as well. Rentals and leases, 3,000. This was increase in contract costs for printers and scanners that they currently have. 2,116 is still the impact for that new cancer policy and the increase in AD and disability. 4,373 in maintenance contracts is the exterior HVAC replacement for Station 31, Lexipol, the McAlurk annual maintenance, and the fire department data mining software are all maintenance costs that cause the variance for 14.3 in order to continue and maintain.
Hey, Wendy,
Yes, sir.
sorry to go backwards a little bit, but when you're talking about design and to rebuild a new fire department, why wouldn't that fall under some type of capital versus?
It does, sir. Like the actual project will be under capital, like the actual build, but the architectural and design is, we're really paying for the professional service to do that. That's why it's a line item, but that'll be rolled up into a project when we fund the new fire station build. So you'll eventually see a project, and it'll have this element incorporated so that they could cover that cost for architectural and engineering. And then you'll see the other elements like the actual build of the structure, things like that. We'll put it in a project and it gets all rolled up together. But at this point, the phase or the item we're allocating in their budget is just to be able to grab those professional services for the architectural design. It's not the actual, like, you know, work, it's the assessment.
All right, it just seemed to be in an odd spot next to promotional testing, stuff like that. So, all right.
Vehicle printing, 9,225 variance. Vehicle lettering for the executive staff vehicles were needed, and that's the variance, the amount causing the variance because of that. 3,002 is transferred costs from the EMS budget. They want to combine both into one account, so they pulled all business office supplies into the fire account and put it under 5,100 this year. Vehicle fuel, the increase in call volume, some projected fuel costs, and travel time from the heavier congestions on roadways is the stipulated reason for the variance of 12,143. And then uniform taxable, 8,814 in, they're stating in the April 2020 VA, they reallocated costs, reducing that budget, right? So they did a budget transfer from 5216, they reduced it, and it created a larger variance this year because of reducing the original budget. And then the actual cost was also aligned with the current fiscal year, so that adjustment was made as well, causing that 8,814 variance. We wanted to make sure that they had what their actual costs were, so they weren't, you know, they didn't have a shortfall. 6,511 in training was due to CPM class cost, team effectiveness class for 2 staff members. And then in equipment and machinery at 8,171, they were allocating for auto calibration kits, some surface water rescue devices, and then recliner replacements, as well as MDTS.
Wendy, on account 4,500, you show a variance of 2116 on this report, but on page, I guess 73, it might say, it shows a variance of 23,657. Maybe I missed something.
No, you did not, ma'am. The deadline for departments to turn in their variance sometimes shift because the variance changes based on, like, as they expend more and stuff. So they might have drafted this variance report because it was like July 7th, and then we run a final update on it, and those costs shift a little bit. So the accurate number is on the report, like you've noted. I normally, after these meetings, go and update everything that shifted and moved to, you know, then produce all the adjustments and everything that needed to be done or anything you've noted. So I have that noted down because I'm aware of that, but it's the timing of the report too.
So do we know what the $21,000 difference is?
Yeah, for the insurance?
Yes.
Yes. What I should have added was the cancer policy, the increase in AD and D in the general liability and property liability insurance went up. So the remainder is GL and property insurance costs. That was across the whole city.
Okay.
Yep, and I'll add that. Like I said, I had that on here because some of them you'll see that shift, that the dollars change. Some of them, especially in the insurance category, swung really high because, like I said, they prepped their stuff with a deadline of July 7th, and then when we finally balance the budget and do that, the reports update, and you know, obviously it's not no fault to the department. They report what they have at the time that they run their reports.
Right. I just didn't know if it was other increases that, you know, you post and they might not know about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Like I said, I appreciate that second set of eyes there. Any other questions for fire? Scrolling down to EMS, beginning at page 75, in second page 76 with the variance following that. 167, 198 is the analysis for fiscal year 1920, comparative to expense and budgeted and actual. Overtime is $60,000 at unscheduled overtime, 16,666 hours at $36 is the average amount listed there, creating your variance of 16,000. Special pay, 16,303, that's 215 times the authorized position. And the increase in salary is a direct relationship with FICA for the 21,560. Contributions for public safety, the variance was 556,537. And then health insurance at 6% increase was an impact of 20,095. 11,427 in workers' comp, due to that actual adjustment with increase in workers' comp cases. So we updated that. And then 3,120 in medical care. We allocated new hire physicals from the 6510 account to the 6520 account, so it's a reallocation there. And 5,142 other contractual services. This is an increase in merchant activities. That's a credit card. And the PMT fee for consulting and filing was added to this year to cover those costs, causing that variance. 7,503 in travel and per diem was the increase for the EMS conference, the CAC, CISM cost, and add of the NFA, meal ticket. These are all out of state and all required travels that they need to do or training for them. So causing that 7,005 and still being authorized to do so out of state. Repairs and maintenance, 57,000. These are increase in service contracts and the new enrollment into the managed care program. Vehicle maintenance at 10,000. This is based on actual 2019, 2020 charges and repairs. So it's reflective of actual expenditures. And then promotional activity, there was an increase for the EMS week and the pink heels at 3,250. Increase in fuel usage at 3,082 was due to the increase in call volume and again roadway congestion. And uniform taxable, this was a previous fiscal year budget error that was reallocated to this division correctly to fix that. And uniform non-tax at 5,560. This was due to an increase in staffing, the CBA allotment, they had uniform insignia changes, and then new hires. And in training, 3,388, this is the increase due to the recertification of all the EMS credentials. This includes the following three credentials, which is PAL, CPR, and then ACL.
So Wendy, just clarify for me that the training that's on the page that went up to 17,000, that'll be adjusted? So I don't have to keep asking you those questions? Okay.
Yes, no, please do so. Thank you. I keep noting it and stuff. Yes, you're correct, ma'am. And then this fiscal year, there was the creation of the Fire Prevention Cost Center. So obviously there was no comparable. So this is, obviously it's going to have a difference exactly of what it was. Those costs were shifted over to create this new fire prevention as the chief wanted to allocate those costs. So there's no variance there just because it's the first year of inception for the this cost center. The 5,800 that you see in fiscal year 2020 for the budget was when they requested it, it was towards the end of 2020 second quarter or something like that. So we allocated some cost, and then now it's officially like we removed that cost and put it in this cost center this year for fire prevention. So all the costs, this is just a transfer coming in from the fire department and allocating it over to them. Okay, the following that you should have is public works. It's on your list as engineering, streets, traffic, and storm. And a variance is, you'll have civil engineering in page 78, and that's the first one you'll see with salaries and wages at 39,068 due to, the analyzed cost and reflection of actuals. FICA being increased, by 2006 due to the salary and wage adjustment. Pension, 5,466 due to the increase from actuary reports. 12,248, 6% in health insurance, that was the impact. In professional services, 184,926. This is listed as factored by additional engineering support for the OUC infrastructure projects, the right-of-way coordination and oversight, and the city's transportation project and maintenance engineering. So these are all professional services causing that variance of 184.9. Vehicle fuel, there's an increase in inspections and driving area due to the city growth and some gas price increase. 3,975 is the variance. 2,495 in training was the additional training classes for the deputy director through some examples like Leadership Osceola, and then the additional professional continuing education for the director or his PE license.
Hey, Wendy.
Yes, sir.
I don't have a problem with the salaries when you talk about salaries, but the FICA, pension, and health, you don't have to, we understand that each one's going to be that way. So you don't have to repeat all three of those each time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. That's civil engineering. We moved to streets and drainage on page 79 with the variance following that. Actually, excuse me, 7980 and then variance. Let me scroll down. Excuse me. Okay. Do you want the special pay too? Because it's the same thing, Chairman?
I don't think we need it. We know what it is. You've explained it. I think we're all pretty clear with it.
Okay. Professional
Thank you.
services, 36,601. This is no change from the 1920. We moved it for finance, we moved this and allocated correctly for those services for streets and drainage because it was allocated incorrectly. So it caused just a variance because of that, because there was nothing or minimal to that last year. In other contractual services, the 14630, this is a new contract for sidewalk repairs due to the damage stated from trees on the right-of-way, and then additional contracts for road repairs. Insurance, as noted, GL and property costs, 13.8. And then road materials and supplies, there was no change from 1920. The previous year, they moved some gas tax costs, and then it was added to this element correctly, so that's why the variance was there, meaning it was sitting in the gas tax, and then was allocated to the general fund as it should be, causing that variance this year. And then machinery and equipment, 48,000. This is one of the very few machinery and equipment, that are approved just because of this was going to be a dump truck for concrete and asphalt repairs, and the increase to the city's service area caused this. And anything that's approved that you see through the budget that are a form of vehicle has gone through fleet for a kind of like a sustainability report as far as where they are in repairs and if it's feasible to, there's the schedule of life is correct and makes sense to purchase something else. So it's been vetted through fleet and then approved through the city manager as well.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to remind you guys, we've talked about this for several years. We have that red line process in place now. It's being done by paper. That fleet management system will help do that. So when we come in and we ask for vehicles, we'll be able to justify it from mileage, use, age, repair status. We haven't been able to do that, but we have been working on that. I know that was something you guys gave several years ago, but that is a reality now. Thank you.
I appreciate you jumping on that. I know you talked about it when you first came on, so I think that's going to make things, when you need a vehicle, we know you need it.
Yes, sir.
traffic control, page 81, and then variance. Other contractual services started off with 48,000. Cost service for traffic signal maintenance, paid to Osceola County for the crosswalks and school lights. This is due to the new cost of Osceola County taking over maintenance services. $3,000 in utility services variance. This is the addition of 3 new traffic signals. Operating supplies 16.4, an increase to the sign materials and barricades needed. Machinery and equipment 8,200. This is 2 small and large message boards required for the roadway MOT to replace one that's current and operable, and then one that's aged, and then in addition of a thermal dye applicator.
Hey, Wendy, is 2 enough for them? I mean, sounds like we're just replacing what they have. If there's a lot of stuff going on, why wouldn't they want more?
They did ask for more, and I'll let the director kind of address that. But they did take the cut when we started doing just expenditure cuts across the way. So, you know, again, it's a proposal, so they did ask for their count, and I'll have the director kind of talk about, you know, his needs there. But they did, as divisions, you know, started cutting, they could live with, you know, this, at least replacing what they need. And like I said, I'll let him answer his thought process on that. Mr. Nassim?
Hello, this is Nassim, Public Works Director. Can I speak?
Absolutely.
Roger that. Okay, yeah, so definitely, you know, we could definitely use more. Like I said, the typical, what our end goal would be to have about 5 message boards readily to be utilized. Definitely the small ones would be very versatile, and the large one would be to sync with what we currently have. With these 2 small ones and one additional large one, to add to the fleet of 1 aged message board, which will, when the stops working, will not be able to be repaired. Will currently put us at 4. Our goal is to be able to increase to be financial steward. I think you know, to increase as the need sets. So this fiscal year have 3 on board, and then next fiscal year add additional as need be. But also look at opportunities to currently share. So if we adding more would be great, but I think right now utilizing our sister municipalities would be probably most cost conscious.
And so that's what we're doing. So when we had all that road closure by the PD, were we borrowing stuff from people? Or?
Yes, sir. So when we have large road closures, what we do is we reach out to Osceola County, we reach out to City of Kissimmee. They recognize the needs for public safety, and then whenever they'll lend their message boards to us for a temporary basis, and we do the same. We would do the same for City of Kissimmee and Osceola County when the need comes as well.
All right, at least if you're looking in the future to add them, I can foresee that being a need with how things are developing around here.
Yes, sir, and also, yeah, thank you. And also just we at times set money aside for rentals as well.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. We are now at Parks and Rec, First Division, Turf and Landscape. You'll be at Parks and Recreation, starts at page 82. And it should be 2 pages. Starting with other contractual services, as I scroll down, 35,800 was the first there. This is for the West 190 mowing, the Michigan right-of-way mowing, Weathermatic irrigation controller for 192 landscaping. The right-of-way mowing increased from an original budget at $84K, and then it was reduced by $59,400 by a budget transfer as well to cover unforeseen expenses. So I put that in there because while they're asking for these items to be covered, they also had to transfer some money throughout the year to cover other costs, and that increased their variance as well. So just to be transparent. $9,000 in vehicle maintenance. This was based on historical data of the current, obviously, vehicle and its maintenance records. And, you know, the variance reflects actual expenditures right now for Park and Rec has in turf and landscape. The original budget for operating supplies was reduced through budget transfer from 42,006 to 33,006. So if you take that difference, they covered some unforeseen costs as well. And then the variance obviously was larger due to the adjustment. The budget that they're requesting officially in 2021 is the same amount as the previous year, but the variance got skewed, because of, sorry. Well, it's lack of water. Sorry about that. I was not going to say that, but because of those budget transfers. So I just want to be transparent as well that they are requesting the same amount of budget. And then vehicle fuel right now is listed as the increased price per gallon. 4,646 is a total variance. And that is turf and landscape, if anybody would like to ask any question or have any questions, excuse me. And I was trying to, okay. All right. Moving to the next division in Parks and Rec, it's Parks itself, 7510, page 84, 85, and then you'll find the variance following that page. Professional services increased by variance was 31,002. This was adding a landscape architect service. The cost was based on 52 cases average a year at 600 per case. We don't have that type of service on staff, so therefore they're requesting it through professional services. In utility services, 9100 was the variance with irrigation and the utilities for the Cannery Park and its building caused the variance. Copier and copies, again, for rentals and leases, the maintenance of the copier and its copies for Cannery Park offices, 7,330. And then the GL property insurance cost at 6,007. Vehicle maintenance, this is the increase due to the increase of the sports complex and welding repairs that are going to be needed at 14,005. And in operating supplies, a variance of 2008, 43, the office furniture for Cannery Park. And in 63, other improvements, this is the installation of pathways and beaches to the columbarium, improvements to the cemetery, and then the pole barn to get equipment out of the weather elements at $82,000. And again, in equipment and machinery, this is the actual columbarium for the cemetery that would be purchased and causing a variance of $34,670.
Wendy, do you know anything about the 4,600 account, the 18,000 variance?
Let me flip over there really quick. Sure. That's when you think you have things bookmarked. Okay. 7510 and the 46.
Yeah, 4,600.
Okay, 4,600. They have the sports complex park system and Mount Peace Cemetery at 24,000. They're replacing bulbs on two ball fields, 4,005. And then in Godwin Park, light upgrade at 4,002. The camera maintenance at Opie Johnson and Godwin and Chisholm at 15,000. And then miscellaneous repair and supplies at 9,000. And they're replacing mulch with pour in place at the Civic Center for $9,000.
And that totals the 65,700.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Recreation, following, let's see, I think that's page 80, following page 87. Other contractual, 34-00 for 6,000 was a community center floor maintenance. This needs to be done twice a year, and that's the variance clause. Vehicle maintenance, variance of 8,000. This was based on historical data and then also current data from the existing year from the from actual vehicle maintenance cost reported. And then operating supplies, they're doing chair replacements for the community center and the community house. They're replacing them all, and that's the cost, or excuse me, the variance for replacing that. Uniforms exempt, this is $2,000 for camp counselor bathing suits. And then other improvements, $29,000 for recreation storage, the seal and restriping of the parking lot at the community center, causing that variance. And then the $6,400, the equipment and machinery, $50,500 for the Hopkins Park fencing. They're doing a fridge and ice machine replacement. Score clocks for 2 gyms. They're replacing the lower system for the basketball hoops in both of the gyms. And that is the 50,500 variance drivers. The following, starting at page 88, are going to be the pool. And the second page is 89, and so you'll find the variance after 89. Vehicle maintenance 46-02, 30,450 is this is based on, again, most of the vehicle maintenance are all based on historical data and then current runs right now on expenditures. So they just align that to any increase that the fleet may have had in those services. In training, 2,600, there's a CPM certification for the aquatic superintendent and then some CEUs for the aquatic supervisors that they need in order to hold their certification. 45,000 was based on the cost shared by the building department to replace the roof on the bathhouse building. And then 6,400, this is the replacement of 2 pool covers and then a robotic pool cleaner for the pool maintenance at 10,080. You'll have landscape maintenance beautification at 90 and 91. And you'll have the special rec facility marina on 92. And then you'll have the banquet, the restaurant banquet on 93. And 94 is just our administrative and general transfers for Parks and Rec. And you will find the variance for the beautification division, the marina, and the restaurant. Scrolling down there for you all. So it should look like that, 7540. 48,004, this added the 4th of July cost because that event was added to their list of events. And then potential sponsorships for the city's other special events. They did 6,000 in vehicle maintenance, again based on historicals and actuals, and then 13,000 because of the recent add of the July 4th event, and then budgeting in 21-20, budgeting for the year end in 21-22, but really was the add-on to the July 4th 13,000 variance cause. In operating supplies, they added 5,370 or they received a variance of 5,370 because of the Silver Spurs Rodeo and Farmers Market. And then the 6,400, they did it 18,837 because they're adding on an event message board. The marina scrolling
Excuse
down.
me, Wendy. Wendy, I'm sorry. What are we doing at Silver Spurs?
Let me grab Ms. Holtkamp, the director, and she can talk all about that. Ms. Holtkamp?
Hi, this is Stephanie Holton, Parks and Recreation Director. The Silver Spurs Rodeo that we participate is actually the Silver Spurs Parade. It's just part of the Silver Spur Rodeo. We started that 2 years ago, and we're just going to continue on with it. The city's a sponsor of that event.
It's just the parade in town or something?
Yes, correct.
And what are the costs? 5,300 for what? Advertisement? So what costs that much money to walk down a street?
Well, it's not just walking down the street. I mean, there's a lot of staff overtime that's included in that. Then we have to put out barricades. We do help with some of the advertisement for that, but really it's the staff costs for that event. And then the farmers markets, that's where it's new. That would be a city sponsored event as well, and we would take the lead on that. So a lot of that $50 will come from the actual farmers markets and putting them on.
I was just wondering, it talks about supplies and you're talking about overtime. So it doesn't seem to match up for me.
Well, I mean, we did, the barricades, for the supplies and stuff. I mean, that in itself costs a lot of money, but like I said, the majority of the funding will be on creating farmers markets throughout the year.
Just curious, with the events being canceled this year, what did we do with that funding?
For the events that we did cancel, like 4th of July.
Yeah. I had to be quite a bit of money that we must have saved. What did we do with that kind of money?
Well, the only money that we saved this year from 4th of July were the fireworks money. Next year is when we take over the whole of 4th of July event. So there was really no money saved. I mean, coming in, we did have to cancel the St. Patrick's Day, so we did save some funding with that. And we did save funding from not co-sponsoring all the events from March till April, meaning the events we sponsor with the Chamber, Main Street, Rotary, those kind of things. So we did save money there. But actual city events, we don't really have that many from March until September of our own events. Next year we will.
Why the change?
The 4th of July event?
Yeah, I mean, if I thought Chamber or somebody did that before, and now we're adopting it.
Yes, the Chamber had done it in the past, but they asked us if we wanted to take over the event, and since we already spent doing the fireworks, we agreed to take over that event. At the end of the day, we spent a lot of staff time down there, so it only made sense that the city took over the event because everybody thought it was a city event to begin with. It's going to be a much smaller event moving forward. It will not be an all-day event. It'll be, a 3 to 4 hour event in the evening.
Oh. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and the restaurant and banquet division for the 4600 element was the repairs and maintenance. This was repairs for the Marina Banquet Hall bathrooms. And with that, that is the general fund. I'm going to go to, water sewer, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So water sewer, you have on page 99. Starting with customer service. And the only variances here that we haven't discussed would be 3,000 in operating supplies. This was the additional cost for licenses and the cell services for it, cell phone services, sorry. And then in books, pubs, and subscriptions, there's a new software for email communication called Constant Contact at 2160 is the variance. Equipment and machinery, these were for new customers field tech positions, and then 16 computer replacements.
Wow.
For the,
Looks like the
6400.
picture.
Huh?
I didn't see the picture on here. I didn't know where it was. The screenshot.
Yeah, sorry, I'm scrolling right here. It is on page 99. And the variances here. So where I left off was 26,497 for the new computer, new customer service field tech position, and for 16 computer replacements, meaning the equipment that they'll get for that new position, and 16 computer replacements. Following environmental is water treatment, and that is page 101 and 102. Here's your water treatment, 4,300 utility services. This is an increase to the electrical cost to include the new booster. That caused a variance of 21,600. And then operating supplies, 203,470. This is a direct increase because of the salt and resin bags. That caused $200,000 in increase at 100 bags at 13,780. And then salt for 52 weeks times divided by 30 at 219 caused that huge variance for the need that they have for salt and resin. So I gave you the calculations there for the variance. Those are the only two within the water treatment division. For water lines in 103, you'll find the variance following page 103 as it scrolls down. And first item, travel and per diem, 2,146. This was an increase in the wastewater collection fee travel they're putting for the water district level 3 cost. Books, pubs, and publications. This is due to calculations of transaction counts, checks, and inventory issues. I am flipping right now. 752. Excuse me, sorry. Just trying to review that for. Okay. Water collection, for that, just to give more explanation, wastewater collection C, they have how many employees per split at the water district level, data flow systems, MOT intermediate, these are just the items listed, some of them for 650, 1,000, excavation, competent, confined space, these are all subscriptions and memberships required, and causing that variance of 210,952, and they're based on transactional accounts, checks, and inventory. And then moving down, this is a new division that is projected for fiscal year 2020-21, which is the instrumental and electrical division. You'll see this in water and in sewer. So therefore, variances were not put in, as this was extracted cost from the other departments and to create the new division to cover those employees that, you know, are now gonna be reclassified to this division. So you'll see that proposed 21, and like I said, it's just a shift to the new, division. That's page 104. Page 105, water administration. And 106, and then variance following that. Really, the major ones listed we've discussed, other than vehicle fuel. This was based on actual expenditures for this prior year and current year performance. And I just noted it just because we've visited it, but it's a new fund for the workers' comp. That 2,136 is those adjustments made because of actual claims and cases this year due to COVID. So that's been adjusted, and then that variance was reflecting because of that. Just wanted to note that. And I won't moving forward, just highlight it. And I'm scrolling, that for your variances there. Sorry. And there's what I was talking about with the increase for vehicle fuel for 3,563. The rest are that you see when you flip through 107 is just those administrative contingencies, the administrative in general, bond allocations that we do for the debt from the 420, the water fund that they have out there, and then capital projects, what's allocated based on those allocated those projects and what we've allocated based on services like personnel, operating, and any other machinery and equipment or improvements of it. Historically, we don't put the variances there, just kind of obviously list them to show you what transactions have happened with that. And then their grand total proposed budget for 2021, you'll find on 110 is at $19,340,600.
Excuse me, Wendy, can you go back to water administration under personnel services and talk about the increase in 3,100 professional fees?
Sure. Professional fees. Let me pull that right now, and I will tell you what compiles that. Okay. For element 31, for professional fees, what is covered under that is we have the financial auditor's report under 3102. That's just the allocation for those costs. Excuse me, hold on one second. Sorry about that. This report didn't open all the way through. Okay, most of the professional services had stopper wetland monitoring in them. The majority of the cost was $100,000. A lot of it is just monitoring professional services. Like I said, one specific was the wetland monitoring. if you would like, I can have the director, Ms. Marjorie Craig, come in to explain the services that she's requesting for professional services under admin. Give you more detail.
Yeah,
for that.
because it's quite a jump, and we didn't happen to have a variance page on this one. At least I don't in my book.
Hi, this is Marjorie Craig. Can you hear me? Environmental Utilities Director.
Yes, ma'am.
And is this one I'm trying to follow on my computer under it's water admin, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. And I've been here about 10 weeks or so, but for outside services, we are a member of the Stopper Group. So our water treatment or water resources requirements and I feel like I'm echoing.
You sound okay. You're good.
Which page is that, Wendy? Is it 109? No, that's capital.
105.
Okay. Okay, so and which line? That's the professional services.
Correct.
And the increase is 114%.
Yes.
Okay, so I know I requested condition assessment for existing pipes. I requested strategic plan, and also I think there's also some additional sampling for the water use permit. But the professional services, this is where any of the studies that we need to have done are put into our budget. And I know there were a couple of studies that we needed to have done that I request to be put into the budget, but it was that I don't have the list here, and you're right, it should be in the variance.
Does this have to do with a lot of our city water issues that we've been faced with and are continuing to have challenges with?
It does. It has to do with some of the continuing challenges with the water color, also aging infrastructure as well. So we've done a really good job in the past in looking at our hydraulic modeling and sizing for development for the most part, but we need to do a little bit more on identifying the condition of our existing system and targeting our budget for what's needed most. But I can give you a more detailed breakdown.
Yeah, and just to assist with that, just to give you more detail, last year the wetland monitoring was $100,000, and with the necessities that Ms. Craig assessed and needed, there was $21,000 added for Water Advisor LLC contract. They did $300,000 for water resources and the master planning that she's structuring. $25,000 towards a strategic plan, and then another $25,000 for water conservation planning, as she has stated and and updated. So those are the breakouts for her from everything she has outlined strategically. And last year you only got they only had the $100,000, so she's definitely streamlined that and made it a little bit more robust.
Okay, thank you.
Got it. The following is the wastewater treatment. This is the sewer utilities tab. Same kind of concept we'll go through as treatment lines and admin, customer service as well. And then the first one is page 111 through 112. Variances following that with professional services. had, 100,000. This was due to the addition of a GIS, incorporated asset management, 5-year operating permit and renewal system with condition assessment. The contractual services increase, or variance was the residuals disposal. This was 450 tons at $28 times 12 months is how they arrived at the need for that and causing the variance at 59.2. And then 27,022 was from utility services. This was in direct correlation to sludge hauling. They were increasing by 450 monthly tons and 14 loads at $175 times 12 months. Moving to wastewater lines. Travel and per diem, they did transfer budget to cover some unexpected costs since there was no traveling through year 1920 when COVID impacted. So they used that to budget transfer some unexpected costs. They started with a budget in 2019-20 at 5,002, and then they reduced it down to 2,780, which caused a larger variance at 2,146. But they have not increased their budget ask for 2021. They just conducted or did a budget transfer. The insurance, jails, and property, that's their portion of the increase to this division. And then 21,729 was the variance was related to the increase in the upkeep of the line rock and then odor control. All these items increased from last year comparative. It was reflected on this year. Following in 115, this is the instrumentation and electric division created in the department that is parallel to the one in water that I mentioned before, and hence all that cost has transferred over to this new division and reallocated here. Wastewater administration is a 7065 on page 116. Start 2 pages there, and then variance following on page 117. Notable there was 14,188. This was based on actual vehicle usage this year, so they increased it to reflect actual expenditures and caused a variance of 14,118. Administration generals, as we mentioned before, no different than the water fund with administrative and general bond costs allocated in for the items you see there with the SRF loans, all those contingencies, and then capital projects allocated by professional services and or whatever operating expenditure they're using there, with a total proposed budget for the sewer fund of $17,990,294. Okay, refuge collection, or you may have a list that says water refuge collection, it should say sanitation, and that starts at 7071, page 122. And I'm going to keep up with the scrolling here for you all. Okay, sanitation fund, first one, excuse me, sorry, there's the sanitation fund or refuge collection on the report. It starts at 122, goes to 123, and the variance starts after that. First mentionable is other contractual services. They conducted budget transfers in 1920. They were at 1.73 mil here and then reduced to about 1.71 in contractual services to cover some items that they needed to through the year and that were unexpected, causing that variance to go a little higher. As you know, the difference between 1.73 million and then 1.71 in contractual services, because they are requesting the same budget as last year. In comm services and accessories, the device upgrades were iPads for the clam truck routes, and then to provide also real-time job information and communication. So that is the variance at 2,760. The aging fleet is causing an increase to the vehicle maintenance, and so the variance is based on, or is caused by the true cost right now and actual expenditures to maintain the fleet at the age of the vehicle. The 26,006 vehicle fuel, they're servicing a larger area, the expansion of the route, and also size and house counts, and of course some of the cost of fuel. That is in relation to that 24,006 variance. Finally, in equipment and machinery, they're replacing obsolete and outdated fleet. This is 2 clam trucks, 2 roll-off trucks, 2 front-load trucks, and then 2 side-loader trucks. As we scroll down in the transfer station, page 124 and 125. Variance notable here would be starting at repairs and maintenance, 4,600. Again, this aging fleet, repairs and maintenance, actual costs were used to determine the need for the current year. And then, or the proposed year, excuse me. And then mail and freight was at exactly 2,000. These were freight for parts and repairs through fleet services. And actual expenditures were reflected with the proposed budget. Operating supplies at 19,950. They needed to address the landfill maintenance. This included things, for example, sod, mowing, concrete, and signage. In vehicle fuel, they increased the increase was due to seasonal high volumes that they're getting as far as activity impact, and then this was in relation to larger service areas correlated with the city's continued growth. 2150 was training for 2 new employees for the waste screening, CDL, heavy equipment, and solid waste management association, and those are all educational requirements. Equipment and machinery, they are replacing an obsolete and out-of-date fleet with what they're replacing is a front end loader, a skid steer, a backup generator. With that, administrative general, the contingencies and no contingency, excuse me, and then the proposed budget at 15,014,267. Your next tab there is the stormwater utilities, page 128. So this is a 450 fund. And it'll go through page 129. Variance will be behind that. And scrolling through. Maintenance contracts at $8,000 were in direct correlation with the additional maintenance contract for the lakefront fountains. They're employing current manpower for high priority maintenance tasks. So $8,000 for the addition of a maintenance contract for the lakefront contract. That is the notable expenditure for the 450 fund. With total proposed budget of $2,350,212. Stay with me, we're almost there, I promise. It gets more exciting. Building permits, Fund 460. Starting at page 133 through 134. This is maintenance contracts for the first one. Let me back up. 34-00 other contractual services at 58,000 was an increase in closed circuit permit scanning. Cost and additional money was needed for the Trackit custom changes that they were doing, or need to do. Trying to give you the reference on the screen. That's at 58,000 there. Following maintenance contracts increase at 3,008. This is the annual increase for the Trackit, the IVR, and the Bluebeam licensing. For promotional activities, 4,000. That's the increase to promote the Building Safety Month, Trackit, and Customer Service Week. In other current charges, 4,200, due to increase needed for contractor workshops, training, and the Building Safety Month event. And 4,500 in operating supplies. This was an increase for tools and supplies that's needed for the field and office staff. And then memberships at 4,171. They're based on code changes and additional memberships that are required for the floodplain manager and architect. And then training, 4,987, was additional testing and increased training costs for new and current staff. That is the building fund with proposed budget of $4,153,134, and that is your general fund and enterprise funds. Vehicle main, we can do, we normally do other schedules, so you can just obviously review the counts of positions in the general fund, and or any other fund increase, so you can look at that and get a rationale as to where the positions were increased, and that would be your tab listed other schedules. I'd just like to ask the committee if there's anything more that they want to go in detail at this point for this phase of this meeting. If you'd like to go through the other schedules, or because normally we leave this up to you all at this point.
Any thoughts from the group?
Dave?
What's that, Orlando?
No, not really.
And that's just, like I said, the schedules that just list out for you to review what, you saw in the budget highlights as far as the number of employees being added or requested, proposed, and where they're coming from on page 145 and 145B under your other schedule tab. Like I said, last year, you guys wanted the general fund and other funds kind of summarized and ask your questions, and like I said, I just defer to you as how you would like to, if you'd like to the same procedure as last year, or if there's anything else you'd like me to review in the proposed budget at this time.
I'm not hearing anything from anyone, so I would take it that we're good.
We are good. Everything's good.
Well, that is my presentation of the proposed budget in conjunction with the team here at the City of St. Cloud. Thank you for listening. Thank you for putting up with me tonight. And let me tell you, it's been a huge kind of, thank my accountants out there for, we hobbled through it, and it's been a little rough, and I on every day, but we're here. So I thank you for your time, and we'll look to your comments and whatever next you need, Mr. Chairman, for this portion of the meeting.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Reviewing the agenda. Do we have any topics for discussion at this time? Any concerns? If not, we will be adjourning the workshop portion of it. Take a 5-minute break, and then we'll allow Jay to switch over stuff, and then we'll go to the final where we make a motion and any recommendations as needed. At this point, is there anybody with any questions, comments, or concerns about what we just heard?
None for me.
All right. I do not hear anybody commenting about anything else at this point. With that being the case, this workshop meeting will be adjourned. We will hold off. I will say let's come back at 10:10. Give everybody a chance to take a quick stretch break and give Jay time to switch over, and then we'll go to their final recommendation and approval of the budget and move from there. So meeting is adjourned until 10:10.